We begin with apologies for absence. Do we have any, Karen? Yes, so that'll be Barry Barry Flux. I know, and then we have disclosure of members' interest. Any? And then we move on to the report of the Interim Executive Director of Finance, which is around the budget and the medium-term financial plan. And I believe we have our Interim 151 officer with us today, and Jan Willis. And to introduce the report, I'll ask Richard Wearmouth, our Cabinet member responsible, to give us a brief outline.
Thank you, Leader. So I won't make an extensive introduction before we move across to hear more from Jan. This is a part of the standard budget setting process, which it takes a considerable period of time between now and February, and this is to note in the report some of the revisions and assumptions to the 22-23 budget, approve the budget balancing measures for 22 to 23, including some £9 million or so of balancing works that's been proposed and put forward by the various departments in anticipation and obviously prior to the receipt of the local government settlement, which I'll discuss in a short while, and to further note the work that's required to refine the medium-term financial plan, which of course covers the next 3 years. And there's a discussion in here about the consultation process and strategy that we will go through in order to eventually come to a point where we're able to approve the budget. At this time of year, for those of our colleagues who might not be as familiar with it, having not gone through it, being newly elected, and for people who are watching online who maybe not so fascinated by internal process of council budgets as some of us are, at this point in time, effectively what we've been doing is working on a series of assumptions about what might or might not be come to pass in the coming weeks and months, and that includes the settlement from the government. That's the sum of money that the government agrees to provide to all local councils across the country. That usually comes in and around Christmas, and so we have a reasonable set of assumptions, but it's not until then, and a few of the things are undertaken as well, like the final agreement of the local authority pay award and so on, and the level of that is finalised, that you can truly know what the budget will look like. So I'll hand across to Jan at this stage to run through maybe a little bit more of the detail, and then we can move to some questions. Thank you.
Jan, are you with us?
I am, Leader.
Thank you.
I think Councillor Wearmouth has covered most of the points that I would want to make. I would just add that we face particular uncertainty this year, partly because we are still dealing with the the aftermath of the COVID pandemic, and that is feeding through into continuing pressures on some parts of the council's budget. So I think it remains to be seen how long it will take for those issues to work through the system. And the other key thing that we are grappling with, that I'm sure everybody will be aware of, is the rising rate of inflation. And that is particularly feeding through into utility prices, but it's also having a significant impact on our capital programme, with construction prices spiralling and shortages of key materials. So it's a bit of an unusual year in that respect. We had expected at this stage to have had some detail about the review of local government finance, and we had also been expecting a reset of the business rates base this year. Both of those have been deferred, and as things stand, it's still uncertain when they're going to be brought forward, which does make longer range financial planning quite challenging. But we are where we are. The package of measures which are in front of Cabinet for approval today should be sufficient to ensure that we can set a balanced budget next year. And we do go into the new financial year in a relatively healthy financial position compared to many other local authorities. So we will wait to see how all of those issues unfold, and update the medium-term financial plan, as Councillor Wearmouth has outlined, over the next couple of months. And then I think we will have to wait and see what happens in the longer term. Certainly, I would hope that some of those issues have been resolved by this time next year, but there are no guarantees.
Oh, that's
Thank
great.
you, Leader. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Jan. Before I take questions, we do have a report from the Corporate Services and Economic Growth Overview and Scrutiny Committee from yesterday, who looked at this report, and there are a number of points in that which I hope you've all had a chance to look at, but it is they were around inflation increases and concerns around that, which we all share those concerns. The issue around local services, the rising fuel costs that we've talked about, and the cost impact of the transfer of NHS staff to the council was not yet known, and the Deputy Leader referred to the construction of the British Vault facility, and not just that, but other new investments coming to the county would undoubtedly increase our income from business rates, so that everybody will benefit. Are there any questions on this first paper? No, I don't see any. So thank you very much for that. We do have recommendations on this. They are in front of you, recommendations 1 to 4. Could I ask if I have a proposer for those, please? Proposed by Councillor Wearmouth and seconded by Councillor yes, Brosai. Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. We now move on to our next one, which is the corporate plan refresh, which you've all had a chance to have a look at. If I may just myself introduce this briefly, which is the corporate plan is a document that council administrations introduce, usually at the beginning of an administration, but sometimes during it. We are refreshing our corporate plan as part of the new administration. It is clear that we have a very straightforward vision, a two-pronged vision, if you like, which is around how can we support business and encourage new business, and how can we best and most effectively look after the people in the county who most need our help. On the first one, that is around encouraging new business, supporting and acknowledging all the fantastic work that's going on around the Port of Blythe and elsewhere in the county, and doing all we can to encourage new investment as part of the renaissance of the county, which has seen a huge shift from old traditional coal-fired industry and support of that to this new industry around new technology and green energy. To support existing business means that we have taken a very difficult decision, but we continue to feel that car parking ought to be free in our market towns where car parking currently does not cost anything, and we will continue that policy in terms of doing our best to encourage visitors and others to enjoy our market towns and shop there. And then on the other part of this, it's around looking after and doing the best we can to help people who but most need our help. And we're talking there about those families and individuals suffering from fuel poverty, child poverty, and food poverty, health inequalities and inequalities generally. Now, I want to just say we have Maureen Taylor here, who is, with her staff, have done fantastic work with Northumberland Communities Together, which has meant that we have now got much more of a hands-on, active, joined-up approach with voluntary groups and with local communities. And that's been doing fantastic work so far, Maureen, and I'm very grateful to you for that. And we want to see that expand even further. We also want to set up a conference early in the new year that will bring all the partners who work in this field together to see what the County Council might be able to do to further encourage and invest in helping those parts of the county where we feel we can help. So this is very much putting some political input into the very fantastic work that our staff are already doing to see if we can move up a gear in that area. So that is the corporate plan. There are a number of targets and key messages in there, which you will have all had a look at, that make us put our money where our mouth is, and we will deliver on these over the next 3.5 years. I want to thank Phil Hunter very much, who's present today, for the work he's done on this. I can tell you, though, that the graphics will change, although the content, well, some of the pictures may be torn up, but the content will remain very much the same. Can I ask Phil if you'd like to say anything?
Thank you, Chair. I suppose the only thing I would add to that from an officer perspective is that the corporate plan is a very useful document in terms of setting the strategic framework, the vision, aims and priorities that we as officers then take into our service planning and all of our performance management and appraisals. So that document is by its very nature, it's a very high level statement of your ambitions and aims and targets, but that is plugged into the organisation in a very detailed way. And we can also use that to take into our, as you referred to, into our conversations with partners, because we as officers can't deliver all this by ourselves as a single organisation. It's very much a partnership approach. So that's the only thing I would add to that. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Phil. Again, you see that we've got a report from the Corporate Services and Economic Growth Overview and Scrutiny Committee, where it welcomes the report, thanks Phil Hunter and his staff for their efforts in putting the plan together, and agreeing that the most vulnerable residents in the county and local community initiatives in that area should be among the council's priority, which is what we're exactly doing. And we really do want to see some outcomes from that will build on the brilliant work that's already being done now. Are there any questions on this corporate plan? Richard Wearmouth.
Thank you. Not so much a question as a comment on the quality of the document. It's a fine revision, really, to a document that's existed for a bit of time, but has moved it on to the next level that it needed to get to. It's one of those documents that, if any member of the public is looking to read a council document, and again, I don't know how many necessarily do fall over themselves to read council documents, this is the one. It identifies clearly and concisely our priorities, the things that we're looking to achieve on behalf of the public and the progress that we're making. I was taken to one page in particular, which it just shows that you have to keep these things always refreshed and up to date, and it's on, I think, page 18 in Thriving and Trends, and it was with regard to unemployment. And Phil and Sarah McMillan the day provided me with just some up-to-date information. Already the unemployment data in there is getting out of date. I think it shows the unemployment rate in Northumberland as of June at about 6.3%, or so as a rolling annual average. I suspect that is, but in fact, the Northumberland economy is performing very, very well indeed, and significantly improved in terms of where we might reasonably have expected to have been had we suffered economic shocks like the COVID pandemic as we've just gone through. So just for a sort of matter of the record, really, that unemployment in October had fallen to 4.3% in Northumberland compared to 5% in the north of Tyne, 5.3% in the northeast, and in England at 4.9%, if I'm understanding correctly. So we're beating all comparative sort of metrics from the various geographies in which we sit, which is testament to just how well the council has navigated its way through COVID, but as well about the effect of the programmes that we've had in place for the last 4.5 years or so as a administration, to make sure that people are able to get a job and to keep that job. So in total, there's around about 8,000 people that are currently unemployed within Northumberland. And when you think about, and I said this in Scrutiny the other day, when you think about the prospects of British Volt and its supply chain employing up to 8,000 people in itself, before you add on the likes of JDR Cables and into more rural parts, the likes of Adgefren and the various other large planning applications and projects that are under construction. So the futures are very bright for Northumberland in terms of that thriving bit, and it's ultimately that, as the leader often comments, that will help us to get movement on those other metrics that are so close to his heart and to all of the cabinets regarding those poverty figures, whether it's child poverty, poverty in work and so on. All these things will drive up wages. And the last bit really is going to be making sure that the educational performance of the county meets and comes up to the mark when it comes to getting people ready for work. And I know that Guy and Kath and Shavston and the team are doing huge amounts on that, as is documented in this report. So, you know, I think all those things are just worthy of note, and I haven't touched on all the other amazing departments and the work that they're doing, but there is just a flavour of how, when you have a good plan in place, you can really make progress rapidly. Thank you.
I think that's all very relevant and good, and I think touching on the value of education, the social services, all our frontline services, all the things that we do so well, and we need to be so grateful to our staff for. Yeah, Jeff Watson.
I think this is a very, very good document. I just wonder what we're going to do with it. Are we sending it out to the public? But I certainly would want to send it out to the parish councils. It really says everything that we're trying to do in a very clear and precise manner, and I think it would be a great document to get out there. So if I could just request that, please.
Yes, absolutely, Councillor Watson. It's something that we will, as Councillor Sanderson said, we've got a little bit of work to do on some of the graphics, just to update and refresh those, and we will certainly share that with the public and our partners.
That's fine, and I think very much as part of our programme of visits to parish and town councils, that will be able to then allow us to talk briefly on what we're trying to do and how they, as parish and town councils and community organisations, can all play their part. Any other questions? Was that your hand up, Councillor Patterson? Or?
I was just to advise.
Yes.
Councillor who wanted to speak to you.
Okay.
However, I will say that I am very pleased with this document, and especially our communities which struggle a little bit. I'm pleased that this is all referenced in here. And also I want to mention health, because without good health, all of us really suffer. So I'm pleased the council is focusing on health inequalities. That is vitally important.
Thank you very much, Wendy, and your role in this is very valuable as well. So absolutely, I do think this is a very good document. Even our strongest opponents might agree that this is the right way for the council to go forward as a whole, working together with everyone else in the county. So thank you for that. We have one recommendation, which is to recommend the corporate plan 21 to 24. Which sets the strategic direction across the council services and functions. Is there a proposer for that, please? Proposed by Councillor Patterson and seconded by Councillor Riddle. Are you all in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Then we move on to climate change and the Green Homes Grant. If I may just very briefly introduce this, because I do want to say thank you to our climate change team, which is built up into this excellent, small but very effective team that is making climate change an integral part of everything we do in this council. And all executive directors will acknowledge this, that we now have to think about climate change in everything we do as a council. And what we need to do next is to bring communities with us, explain that everyone, by doing a small amount, can make a big amount collectively, not by harassing and pushing people to do things, but taking people with us. And that means working in the community, which our team is doing, but also to be the enabler and deliverer of efficiencies in terms of this kind of initiative, which is around the Green Homes Grant and what we're actually doing within that and the money that we're getting. So I'm going to pass over to Nick Johnson, who I'm pleased to see here this morning. Nick, in a nutshell, can you tell us what this is about, please?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, this is part of our heating strand of activity within the Climate Change Action Plan. We've been successful in being awarded £2.2 million of grant funding to deliver energy efficiency savings in low-income households across the county. That should meet around 220 households, private households in this case, and we're here to seek approval to add that to the council's capital programme. This is part of a wider series of bids which we've been awarded or are bidding for to reduce carbon emissions from heating and to alleviate fuel poverty in the county.
The report was assured that the funding would be prioritised to the most deprived wards and in areas where take-up was more densely requested. And they did welcome this as an initiative. Are there any questions or comments? Jeff Watson.
Yeah, can I just ask you, just 'cause I'm not clear what it actually means on the second page of the report, in the second paragraph. It says the Fusion 21 framework will allow NCC to undertake compliant procurement to access the available supply market. What does that actually mean?
One's too complicated for me, so I'm going to pass it straight over to Nick.
Thank you. It simply means that we will need to procure a delivery partner. The first phase of this was delivered in partnership with E.ON Energy, but we want to re-procure for the second phase, and that's the framework that we'll be using to do that. So we'll be working together with another partner to deliver these measures.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for that, Nick. Any other questions, Colin Horncastle?
Yes. At the bottom of the first page, when it's summing up the EPC ratings, EFG, I mean, this is for low-income houses. I mean, it costs money to get an EPC certificate, so how's that work for low? How are you going to incentivise low-income families to get the certificate?
So in order to be eligible, you need to have the EPC, but we have good data on where we think houses will have low energy efficiency even if they haven't got an EPC based on what surrounding households have. So the EPC can be delivered as part of this process. So we will target households which don't currently have an EPC, but which we suspect would qualify, and they would then get the EPC as part of the grant funding.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Any other questions? No? Okay, so if not, can I move you to the recommendations? There are 3. Is there a proposer? Proposed by Councillor Wearmouth, seconded by Councillor Renner Thompson, I think. All in favour, please? Yep. Lovely, thank you very much. Takes us now to the lottery update. This is the Northumberland Lottery annual update. I'm going to ask Councillor Wearmouth to speak to this.
Thank you very much, Leader. So it's a relatively straightforward update paper with a recommendation attached as well. So the Northumberland Lottery was set up by Northumberland County Council to raise money for local groups who are approved to sell the tickets, and they receive 50 pence in every pound for tickets that they sell. A further 10 pence from those tickets goes into the community chest to support applications that come into the community chest. It's been running for a little while now. We get support from an external management company that works with a lot of councils, and I think first started, and this was asked in the scrutiny yesterday, they first started working, I think it was with Aylesbury Council, who presumably now have been absorbed into Buckinghamshire County Council, if I recall correctly. In terms of funds raised to date, there have been in the last year, just as the drills start outside, 48,000 pounds has been raised for community groups who've been selling the tickets, with 4,568 pounds going into the community chest. The next steps in terms of what is being proposed is that the scheme, first of all, continues as it's doing such good work to raise funds, but that we do a refresh on the social media and marketing campaign supported by the communications team and communities together to raise awareness of the benefits to more groups who would like to perhaps benefit from the scheme. And you can see, I think, in Appendix 2, a list of just how diverse the organisations are that qualify, including local scout groups, development trusts, disability groups, theatre groups, friends of local parks and schools, and bowls associations and youth projects and cricket clubs and football clubs and just about every other type of club that you could possibly imagine. So the important caveat, of course, to all of this is, as you would expect from NCC, that any gambling and lottery, that the spend by individuals is done with guidance that people mustn't overcommit themselves, and that people selling the tickets act in a responsible way to make sure that people do not come into debt as a result. And I shall leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that. There is a summary from the Corporate Service and Economic Growth Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which looked at this as well, and they welcomed this, acknowledging that gambling could be a problem for some, but content that the necessary mitigation measures have been put in place. So they welcomed the report subject to those points. Are there any questions or comments that anyone would like to make? I think we probably all welcome this. Thank the staff that have done this work. And actually, if we could perhaps look to highlighting this more, then all the better for those community groups and so on that have benefited. So the recommendations are to note progress to date and agree and support the continuation of the lottery and appropriate marketing activities to further promote the scheme, Those are the recommendations. Would anybody like to propose those, please? Proposed by Councillor Wimmer, seconded by Councillor Patterson. Are you all in favour? Can you please show? That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. I think that takes us to the end of the business. So thank you for joining this meeting. Is the recording finished? The recording's finished. Can I thank you all?